Hi, Jim again, and today we're going to talk about there are no IEPs in college.
None.
So more so than any other time in history, students who were on an individualized evaluation plan, or an IEP, in high school are now attending college. It would be an injustice to simply say there's been a mere upswing of students with disabilities attending college today. A tsunami is more like the proper term.
Hey, Johnny Tsunami!
The Higher Education Opportunity Act of 2008 was passed that provided resources for higher education to assist students with disabilities in colleges and universities. This is part of the reason for the huge increase in students with disabilities attending our colleges and universities. Today, more than 1 in 10 of all college students have some form of documented disability, as compared to 1978.
Yes, exactly.
When there were less than 3 out of every 100 students who listed themselves as having a documented disability. As mentioned, this is a documented disability. Many students with disabilities attend college, but for one reason or another, many wish not to identify themselves as disabled. And as will be discussed later, that means they cannot receive accommodations. In fact, one estimate stated that the majority of students with a disability elect not to report their disability, and therefore they cannot receive accommodations.
Just register.
The estimated percentage of students attending college with a disability who are not registered with disability services ranges from just over 50% to up to 75%, compared to high school students, where there is 98% of students with a disability who are registered as having a disability. This is one of the main reasons that students with disabilities who attend colleges are generally retained at a lower degree, and those students who are retained generally take longer to graduate.
What's the good news?
However, the good news is that those who register with accessibility services and take advantage of the services available have better grades and graduate sooner than those who choose, for whatever reason, not to register with disability services. 2 additional factors assist students with disabilities to have a successful transition to college and to graduate. 1, getting involved in student life, and 2, taking a leadership role. Both of these items can be checked off the student checklist, usually very early on in the student's college career. Most colleges, usually very early in the semester, have some type of open house in which the student organizations are showcased. My suggestion is to find at least one student organization of interest, possibly something in the student's major.
What's your major?
And join that student organization. Over time, the student will have an ample opportunity to take a leadership role in that student organization. Doing so kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You get involved in a student organization and you set yourself up for a leadership position. As I mentioned, it also helps with retention and graduation. I cannot tell you the number of times a parent said to me, my son or daughter was on an IEP in high school, so how do I go about getting them on an IEP in college? The answer, as you can tell by the title of this section, is there are no IEPs in college. Although higher education does not have special education, disability services do exist, although most schools today call it accessibility services. These services are based on Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973.
So just read from the script and I'll jump.
And the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, and both prohibit discrimination on the basis of a disability and require that colleges and universities provide equal access for students with disabilities by providing reasonable accommodations. So, for example, if a student has anxiety during tests, a reasonable accommodation might include taking tests in a room by themselves, usually in the tutoring center. If they have dyslexia and have difficulty taking notes, reasonable accommodations could include a note taker during class. However, under no circumstances will the information on the course exams be any different, harder, or easier than the information for which the general population of the class is tested. The key, however, is documentation, which must be provided to the school. And this documentation is usually provided to the school's disabilities coordinator or accessibilities coordinator, whichever they're called, and should be done prior to the start of classes. In other words, don't wait until the day before classes and then try to turn in your paperwork and expect accommodations the next day.
When you wait until the last minute.
Disabilities on campus range from students in wheelchairs to students with vision issues to students with mental health issues. Students with psychological or emotional issues today represent the largest group of students with disabilities on campus. All colleges and universities have disability services, or as I mentioned, accessibility services, although most are changing their name to accessibility services. However, especially at smaller campuses, the accessibility services director may have multiple duties, may have multiple roles to play.
Oh, me, I wear many hats.
So it's important to get in there early and sign up by bringing your documentation as early as possible. I recommend making some type of contact, whether it be email, voicemail, personal visit. Once you get your college acceptance letter, some colleges have special partnerships with other universities to assist students with disabilities with resources that will be of major benefit to them. For example, the City College of New York has accessibility services with a special program in the library that assists students with the use of the library and its various resources. Programs like this are beneficial, not just for the services they provide, but the fact that it also gives the student one of their first contacts on campus. However, keep in mind that it can still be more challenging for students with disabilities to attend college than students without disabilities. Students with disabilities tend to have a greater anxiety as they transition from high school to college, and also have a lower retention rate during the first 2 years of college than students without disabilities. However, as stated earlier, motivation goes a long way in helping students get to graduation, as well as getting registered with accessibility services. That's it for this session. I will see you at the next session. Thanks for watching.